Let me explain that the Thamud people, according to the belief of scholars today, were in the Medina region, though not Medina Munawwara itself. In that area, there is what is called Qaryat al-Salih, the village of Prophet Salih. Let me explain the geography of the prophets. Abraham is now in Israel, in the state of Israel, in Hebron. As for Prophet Shu'aib, most people believe he is now in Jordan. And Prophet Hud, people currently believe he was in Yemen in Al-Ahqaf. That is why there is a university named Al-Ahqaf, which is mentioned in the Quran. Bil-Ahqaf. Understand? Al-Ahqaf is for Prophet Hud. Prophet Salih is in Qaryat al-Salih in the Medina region. Listen to this. The area from Mecca to Tabuk has several villages that were destroyed by the Lord, whose water or springs were forbidden by the Prophet ﷺ for the companions to drink, because those were the remnants of the people destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when Allah establishes a message, everything is prepared, including the tradition. The Quraysh people love to travel. Listen carefully, because of their love for travel, Allah has a reason to blame the Meccan infidels if they do not understand the Lord's tradition or the Lord's way toward those who denied the Prophet's message. It is called wasakantum masakina, musahumakum. Listen carefully. So the people of Mecca, the Quraysh, really knew that Sodom's land was overturned. Now people believe it is in Jordan and part of Palestine, where the Dead Sea is. That is believed to be the former Sodom village, which was overturned for committing homosexual acts. Then there was a people in Yemen called Hadramaut, a dead city also destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Listen carefully to this. From all that history, the Quraysh infidels knew everything. That is why the Quran chides the infidels, awalam yaro, awalam yasiru, or whatever it says. Have they not traveled there and seen this? Have they not traveled there and seen this? Listen carefully. That is why scholars have an obligation to travel. Imam Bukhari became so learned because he went to Mecca, Medina, Uzbekistan, Egypt, basically. Scholars must wander, because if they do not travel, they cannot fulfill awalam yasiru, or what is it? Yeah. Listen carefully. Do not let us experience myths that cannot be historically proven. For example, regarding the Red Sea, people have really seen many of Pharaoh's chariots discovered by archaeologists now, and the dating is the same as the date when Pharaoh and his troops drowned in the Red Sea. So thanks to people traveling, many historical sites are revealed. The Prophet's ancestors had a tradition of wandering. That is why one of the Prophet's ancestors was called Qusay. Qusay, a wanderer to distant places. A wanderer. His name was Mujam Sumusin, known for being fond of distant lands. Now, an ascetic is a pious person, but it is funny if someone wanders and gets scolded by students. Why are you wandering? Take the opportunity to wander, understand. If you have money, travel, so you can gain wisdom, but don't just go to Kalimantan, understand. Travel is important. Traveling is important. As in, have they not traveled? What does have they not traveled mean? Me, before I ever went to Mecca, I had already traveled through knowledge. I read books explaining geography, the works of Ibn Battuta, and various scholars proving that traveling is truly vital. Prophet Muhammad's prophethood became known because of travelers. If not for travelers, Prophet Muhammad wouldn't have become a popular subject of discussion. It was thanks to travelers. Abu Talib loved to travel. The Prophet's uncle enjoyed going to the Levant, Siam. Nowadays that includes Palestine and Jordan, which is the Levant. Whatever was there, including the route through Syria. There is even a place called Kanasatu Bahira, some read it as Bukhairo. It is kept there, where the monk Bahira met Abu Talib. When he met Abu Talib brought the young prophet, who was 12 years old. Scholars of the past loved using it as said qila, because if they didn't, there would be consequences. That is why I once debated a Wahhabi person. It was troublesome. Nowadays, many people argue against the Prophet being born on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, claiming that if you count backward, Monday falls on the 19th. Or the 9th. If calculated and counted back again, can we use astronomical calculations, hisab? No. It's very possible, right? It's not possible. Wait, it's very possible. Then he asked, what is the proof that back then the 12th coincided with that day? Preachers don't think anymore. They just celebrate Mawlid without deep thought. My simple answer is, I am a scholar. Before you question this, I had already studied the Kitab Barzanji. Scholars have never been dogmatic. They have always said, it is said on this date, or it is said on that date. And the most famous one is the date of 12. So people who truly have a tradition of scientific possibility are the scholars. Do you understand? Did you think the Barzanji gave a certainty of the 12th? It uses, it is said, doesn't it? It is said on the 1st, it is said on the 12th, it is said on the 8th, and so on. You are too late because I'm an expert. Ibn Abbas stated the Prophet lived to be 60. We just blindly follow saying 63. You don't know the truth. But I know, because I am a scholar. And I can deduce it. Because if the Prophet ﷺ was born in Rabi' al-Awwal, it follows the birth year starting from Muharram Safar, then Rabi' al-Awwal. It makes sense to place it in the first year because Rabi' al-Awwal follows the beginning. Now the end is also Rabi' al-Awwal. For example, the Prophet's farewell pilgrimage was in Hijjah. After the farewell pilgrimage, the Prophet only lived for 60 days. Guys, that means Dhu al-Hijjah, Muharram, Safar. So the year the Prophet was born, it follows the counting of the months. If you take 12 minus 3, it leaves 9. At birth, it's counted as 9. But at death, you only get 3. The children aren't counted. The future isn't counted, and the past isn't counted, and the past isn't counted. That means Kanida. Mustafa must be thinking mathematically he has to. Yeah. No, right now, for example, take the time. It's not 12 yet. How many hours left? Or 3? See, he's thinking. I'm annoyed because everyone there was thinking, I'm annoyed. I am a pious person, I have to think, but one must respect righteous people. That's why I'm sometimes annoyed I have to show respect because they are righteous. But if I invite them to think, they can't. That's the behavior of pious people. So from 9 to 12. How many hours is that? Hard. For instance, if I study after 12, how many hours is it? 3 hours. 3 hours, right?
Mustafa, if you tell him, he'll count 4. He always counts the first one. I'm annoyed by people like this. He said 4 at first. I'm annoyed by that behavior. Come on, we must repent. It means when a prophet is born in a birth year, that must be counted as the first year. And after the Prophet ﷺ is 1 year old. It jumps 1 year. That's why Ibn Abbas only counted. You understand? If you calculate study time until 12, that's when the study ends. Gus Baha studies at 11, 10, 11, 12. I don't need to, no need to be shy, just relax.
Relax here, just relax. So a person must understand the science of astronomy. How so? The science is explained. The Quran explains the sun and moon. Nowadays, people are quick to be anti-astronomy. What explains astronomy in the Quran? Ash-shamsu wal-qamaru. The sun becomes the solar year, the moon, the lunar year. Ash-shamsu wal-qamar. I really want to cry. Ru'ya is the Prophet's hadith, while astronomy is calculation. People fight about it if it's not calculation. It's explained in the Quran, and Ru'ya is explained in the hadith. How can people pit the Prophet against Allah? How is that? Who do you think the Prophet is, and who are they? Whenever there's a debate like that, I just go to sleep. No, if it's between scholars, there's no problem. The certainty of calculation is God's science, which is in the Quran. Ru'ya is the Prophet's science, and that is also in the Quran, sir. That's why in Dubai, after the Mawlid, it's explained that there is no nasikh. If there were no nasikh, there would be so many possibilities. Now let's ask, for example, the Prophet ﷺ. Coming to Medina, what was the date? Let's check the Gregorian calendar. The Prophet ﷺ was born in 600, what was it? 500? No one thinks about the Gregorian date. Why bother? If it's 610, then if it's 610, the Hijrah is 600 plus. You know what I mean, right? Right? The Prophet ﷺ became a prophet in Mecca. So that was year 623. You never think, do you? Just think. Pious people are just like this. They just want the reward like reading Shalawat 1 equals 10, but they don't want to deal with complicated history. Anyway, let me tell you about my wandering again. Due to his travels, Abu Talib met Bahira, who immediately understood that the oldest tree in the world was there where all prophets had sat, and that the tree would react if a prophet were present. If not, it would not react. Turned out that when the Prophet ﷺ sat there, if the sun moved west, the tree followed to the west to shade him, and if he went east, it followed to the east. So he truly knew this was a prophet. Then he looked at his eyes, his features. He examined the signs. He confirmed them. Yes, it is true. Meaning clearly this is a prophet. Abu Talib was so disappointed. Bahira was disappointed because Abu Talib asked, who is this? This is my son. Bahira kept refuting. All the signs of a prophet were there except for one. Is he really your son? He asked, who is this? Yes, this is my son. Bahira was annoyed. Who is Bahira to say he is your son? Up to 3 times, Abu Talib answered, this is my son. Bahira was frustrated because all the data was complete except for one thing, the mystery of whose son he was. Abu Talib in turn was offended, asking why it mattered if he was his son, when all the signs of the Prophet ﷺ were present in him except for having a father. Because in the Torah, it is written that the Prophet is an orphan, his father passed away while he was in the womb. Abu Talib finally admitted he was his nephew, and then he was hugged. Thanks to the journey. Then Bahira advised him to take his nephew home, because if he reached Jewish territory, he would surely be slaughtered by the Jews, as this prophet was the one they feared most. So gossip spread in Mecca and Medina. The end times prophet is of Quraysh descent. So the gossip reached Medina. Back then it was called Yathrib. So the gossip was in Medina. The people of Yathrib heard the rumors from the Jews. The end times prophet is from Mecca. Finally, the Ansar people went on Hajj to find the Prophet. Let us not be preceded. In history, we must not let the Jews find Muhammad first. We must be the ones to meet the Messenger of Allah first. That is why the Ansar had faith before leaving from Mecca. They were already educated thanks to the gossip about the Prophet ﷺ. And this is the blessing of traveling. Abu Sufyan met Heraclius in Jericho, in what is now the area of Israel, Jericho. Yes, they discussed the end times prophet. Nowadays, pious people prefer not to travel, staying at home, thinking that by not going out they become more charismatic, have many visitors, have lots of money, and are happy. That's all enough. I am telling a story. It is fine, you should understand. If you disagree, that is envy. Do you agree or understand? The Quran. It says, have they not traveled? If I am asked to agree, it means I am opposing the Quran. Pious people must travel so they can gain wisdom. If they do not travel, they cannot gain wisdom. Traveling allows for reflection and thought. Imam Shafi'i was annoyed when he studied in Yemen. Let me tell you about the blessed scholars who studied in Yemen. Yesterday I told you that Imam Shafi'i knew poverty until he became traumatized by it. This is a story about the science of physiognomy. Firasat learned in Yemen the kutubu. Firasat, because a believer fears the intuition of a believer, for they see with the light of God. After studying the book of physiognomy and becoming learned, the teacher declared him to have passed that a person with curly hair has such character, or if a person has this kind of forehead or these eyes, they have such personality. Every time the knowledge was tested, it was proven correct. One day, he met someone who, according to his books, had the worst, most disappointing character. He met him while traveling. The person was kind. Imam Shafi'i was invited into his home, given food. And the man even chased his own children out of the room. Since there were no hotels, he was told to stay in that room, treated as a noble guest, a person of the Quraysh. Imam Shafi'i was a descendant of the Quraysh. He was fed, given warm milk in the morning, and the children's room was vacated for him. Imam Shafi'i was on the verge of burning his books, thinking the science of physiognomy was wrong and all the criteria in the books were false. According to those criteria, this man was a bad, disappointing person. But he turned out to be so kind. Just as he was about to burn the books, he asked to leave. And what happened? He was asked to pay. He had to pay for all the meals over 3 days, calculated at a multiplied rate. The room was also built. Don't you know I kicked my own children out? You must pay for that. The price was special because he had gone through the trouble of kicking his children out. In the morning, it wasn't just water, but warm water for you to bathe. He had just finished praising the man for his incredible hospitality. In the end, the book was not burned. The book was correct. But Imam Shafi'i's money was gone due to the exorbitant charges. That is how the scholars of the past studied. He found that the man's true nature was actually bad. He almost burned the book because it didn't match the criteria. Today's scholars, I cannot count how many times I have been to Yemen, Baghdad, and Egypt, all for the sake of knowledge. I had a dream of traveling, and thank God, I have met many. Thank God, like the top authors of today, such as Sheikh Ali Sabuni, who often visits Sarang. I have also been to Mecca, so it is easy to meet them there. It is easy. International scholars often visit Indonesia now. Last Sunday, Habib al-Adrus was scheduled to visit Sidogiri, but I was here. But actually, the community of scholars now meets quite often. Sayyid Umar Hafiz has the Majalis Muashola. The importance of meeting often is to resolve various jurisprudence issues. An easy example is our study of prayer times. Subuh starts at dawn and Dhuhr starts when the sun passes the meridian. But in the polar regions, there is no sunrise or sunset. Muhammad was once asked about it, and it was measured against the Kaaba. If, for example, you drove through from Texas, does it hit the Kaaba? Or if you drove from the Kaaba, does it hit Texas? And what is the direction? There is a direction. It is not just a quarter, but precise. Which way do you face? You cannot just call it west or east because it is exact. Now that is the blessing of traveling. If you don't wander, you'll never think. Yeah. It's the blessing of people who study astronomy, for example. Knowing in which months it happens, it's March and July, right? Is it March and July or May and July? For the Amul Qiblat, sun over the Kaaba. Yes. May, yes. May and July, yes. May. July, May, it must be 2. Yes, but in a year it must happen. Twice, May and July, it seems. On certain dates, the sun must be right above. The Kaaba may be around 4:13 or 4:17, basically. It's at that time. Because of the blessing of wandering, one still knows. Between the equator's tilt, and the Kaaba, it's roughly slightly to the north. So it's impossible for someone to pray facing south. It seems uneducated. Basically in astronomy, if things are similar, well, they are a bit similar going north like that. We can learn it through astronomy, and people who wander, again, people don't like being told to wander because the whole world is calculated. That is because Allah Ta'ala says, "وَانْتَجْ مِحِرًا." Calculate, use a hisab, calculate. The sun and moon, this one is close to the north, this one is close to the south, and now it's in the middle. It's very hot. When it's close to the north, the south isn't very hot. When it's close to the south, the north isn't very hot. Finally, scholars created winter, summer, autumn, spring, 4 seasons. That is the blessing of those who wander. So back then there was no astronomy, but thanks to those who wandered, they knew everything. They realized it turns out the world is different. Traditions are different, knowledge is different, the atmosphere is different, the weather is different, what is called kamsumin kose aledito. The Prophet ﷺ also often traveled. That's why they knew. That's why Allah reminds the Quraysh, لِيَلَافِ قُرَيْشِ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَاتٍ. The Quraysh love to travel. What does ihlah mean? Going away. That's why people today like rihla. What does it mean? The blessing of going away is having winter and summer. So traveling is good, but let's understand, okay? Don't just make a shelter. That's not traveling, that's running away. Understand? Traveling is. So traveling is learning. Understand? If you travel, those at home should receive. That is called returning home. Don't return home and not be welcomed. So that you understand, okay, and once you have traveled, returning home, let's bring sustenance. The Quraysh, whenever they traded, they brought back a lot of money. As it is said, الَّذِي آتَمَهُمْ مِنْ جُوءٍ وَأَمَنَهُمْ مِنْ خَوْفٍ. So the main trade of a traveler is coming home with money. That's the point. Don't come home and then the money is all gone. That's a problem. So God has arranged it nicely, travel for experience, but return with money. That is what causes atamahum min ju'in, which means satisfying hunger. Wa amanahum. Now this kind of knowledge is considered traditional Quran by you as a charm. It doesn't become traditional. The Quran becomes traditional because the people using it use it as what? A charm. Try having those who use it scientifically like me. It won't be a charm. Is it awalam yasiru or afalam yasiru? I once debated an economist about usury, riba versus trade by. Between usury and trade, trade is always more profitable. Let me give you an example like this. Now, suppose I have 100 million and Mustafa borrows it with a mandatory monthly interest payment of 1 million. So for the first month, the 100 million becomes how much? 1 million. So if after a year it becomes 100 million plus, there's a risk Mustafa might die, go bankrupt, or experience various other things. Now I've studied a lot. This is Tahadat's bin Nima. Speaking of God's blessings, if I use the interest system, that 100 million, if developed through usury, would only grow by that much in a year. 112 million, so it only grows by 12 million. Now, if I use trade by in a halal way, for example, buying goats, let's say mature goats, I buy them for 100 million and sell them for 102 million or maybe 105 million. That means for every 100 million, the profit is how much? 200. So for every 100 million, the profit is how much? How much? 2 million, right? Now for 100 million, how much? 2 million. So if it's 100 million, 2 times 10, then 100 million is 2 million. If the transaction is halal and cash at every livestock market, assume the profit is 2 million. Even if you imagine some stupidity or other issues, it's still 2 million per transaction. If the livestock market is held 4 times a month, 8 million. That is the blessing of trade. If you have 100 million and use halal trade, you can make a monthly profit. Imagine the stupidity. Sometimes you bring the wrong ones, all sorts of things. Traders have their little blunders, maybe because their partner was seduced. All kinds of stupid things. Don't imagine it as something bad like cheating. It's not even that far. Just imagine simple stupidity. Don't be hypocritical. It's normal here. Stupidity, 100 million, still 2 million. If the first or second month you are stupid, surely by the 5th month you won't be stupid again, unless you're incredibly foolish. This means, try developing it through usury, it only increases 12 million. Whereas developed through halal and cash trade, per month it could be 8 million. Imagine the loss. Now what if 8 million times 12? 240 million. That's why Abdurrahman Bin Auf was the richest man in Medina when his caravan arrived from Syria. Medina would shake because of the sheer number of Abdurrahman Bin Auf's camels. He was asked, why are you this rich? I never trade except for cash. Sometimes in the camel trade, the profit in Indonesian currency was only 50,000, even though the camel's value was 10 million, meaning, why was he so eager? Don't be afraid, you'll stay rich. You know what I trade? 500 camels. So that's 50,000 times 500. 500. The point is, it must be cash. If there's a risk of the money being taken by someone, I usually exchange hand to hand. It becomes cash. That's what scholars think about. That is why Allah dares to challenge. I indeed forbid usury, but I take responsibility. In the way of Allah, it is fitting to say, I forbid usury, but I take responsibility. Meaning, trade is far more promising than usury. Once again, the ones who should be thinking about this are the scholars. Misthought about it. They just say that those who eat riba go to hell. Those who eat, who write, who record, just saying that everywhere. In an economist's view, that's not a solution. If everyone goes to hell, the economy collapses, then who is responsible? The ones practicing that economy are the ones in hell. You must be able to prove that trade is more prospective than riba. That is what is called la hujjatullah, meaning you follow Allah's religion because you understand the logic that trade is more promising than riba. Even though you and I warned that riba is a grave sin, look in the book Nashayh al-Diniya. Ignorance is the worst of sins. First is ignorance, then riba and various others. Number one is ignorance, because if Muslims are ignorant, the country closes down. Islam closes down. Abdullah Haddad was annoyed because some pious people couldn't answer when asked, how can you forbid riba? The infidels were right. Innamal ba'u mitzlur riba. Trade is like riba. Both seek profit from a margin. You buy for 10,000, sell for 12,000. You are also seeking profit from a margin. The infidels mockingly said, Innamal ba'u mitzlur riba. What is the difference between trade and riba when both take a margin? If Muslims are ignorant and cannot explain it, that is what causes Islam to collapse. That is why they say the worst sin is ignorance. That is why ignorant people are hard to guide. They are also sinful, even though the requirement for guidance is obedience. So ignorant people are constantly sinful and hard to guide. You just keep sinning, so you cannot be relied upon by Islam. Scholars must reach that point, understanding the wisdom that trade is more prospective than if you argue with me. But Gus, trading often leads to being scammed. Well, the possibility of being scammed in riba exists too. If you lend money on riba and the person runs away, what then? You lend 5 million and they promise to pay. It turns out they... Regarding the potential for being scammed, it is the same in riba as it is in trade. That is why Abdurrahman Bin Auf said, the most blessed trade is the halal one, which is what? Cash. So can you imagine that? The possibility of being scammed in cash is small. For example, you buy a sheep for 2 million. On each sheep, you only take... Once it doesn't sell, it's because you are ambitious for 1 million in profit. If you buy for 2 million and offer it for 3 million, it will surely take a long time to sell, right? But if you buy for 2 million and sell for 2.1 million, it will sell quickly. But if every 2 million, it means 100,000 times the 2 million capital. So assume every 100, well, for every 10 it's 10, meaning 2 million times 10, yes. 2 million times how much? Every 2 million means 200. If 100, then 50. right? So 52 million means how much? 2 times 50. 100 million in total capital. If every 2 million gives a profit of 100,000, that means 2 million, 100,000 times 50. How much is it, man? How much? It's our million, right? What's the going rate for our million per animal around here? Every 5 days, once a day. Every 5 days means 6 times a month. So our million times 6, that's already 50% interest. I've seen all sorts of scams. People getting hypnotized. I've been in the field. I'm a researcher. I know how everyone behaves. For example, if you do an inspection per month, right? With 50% interest, how much is left? There's still 30 left. No worries about things, even for those people. No worries at all. People pay all transactions. Test. Oh, looking sharp, man. Starting to get kicked out by your wife? So it's our million, now our million. Time 12. 3 times 12 is how much? 36. So how much is that? 36. Our 60 million is enough for Hajj plus travel back and forth. Imagine if it were just profit, how much would it be? 12 million. Yes, like heaven and earth. It's 300. It's incomparable. You become a scholar to understand things like that. God forbids usury because of the responsibility, because if it's more